Now we start with the latest on the coronavirus situation in South Korea. The nation is seeing an uptick in the number of new infections as we get to the week. Now, with an easing of its restrictions ahead, it seems some people might be feeling complacent.
For more on this and other COVID-related updates, I'm glad to say we have our reporter Choi Min-jung in the studio with us. Good morning, Min-jung.
Good morning.
So let's start with the daily figure forecast for Wednesday. What are the estimates as of now?
Right, so we're expecting to see a big jump in the number of cases for Wednesday. More than 1,800 cases were confirmed from midnight to 9 p.m. yesterday. So today's tally will most likely be around 2,000. The weekend effect has officially come into play as cases usually begin to increase from Wednesday. But what's also attributing to the rise is people becoming more complacent as we get closer to next week's easing of restrictions.
Now, speaking of next week, we heard that people will need to show their vaccine pass in order to get into some certain places, such as, fitness centers and singing rooms. But what about people who haven't had their jabs?
Right, so people who have not yet gotten vaccinated, they will need a negative PCR test. So this also applies to those who have only received the first dose of a 2-dose vaccine like Pfizer's or Moderna's. Fully vaccinated people will also need a negative test if 2 weeks have not yet passed since their last shot. They must remember that they should get tested a maximum of 48 hours ahead of using the facilities. Regarding PCR tests, authorities are expecting a spike in the number of people getting tested as cases are expected to rise with many restrictions now lifted. To prevent an overload, they are considering charging for PCR tests needed to enter high-risk facilities. But for the time being, the test will remain free of charge. Besides this, there was also a confusion as to whether or not a vaccine pass is needed to enter hospitals. The authorities yesterday clarified that people will not need it when going to see the doctor. However, vaccine passes will be mandatory for those visiting or looking after patients.
Okay, so that's the situation as it stands in South Korea. But a lot of us are thinking about international travel now that the vast majority of people in South Korea have been fully vaccinated. How's that looking?
Right, so the United States recently bumped up its travel advisory for South Korea to level 3. So this level means that people visiting from the U.S. should reconsider travel to South Korea. The second toughest level in the scheme indicates that there is a high level of COVID-19 in the country. The level was bumped up from level 1 to level 2 in August when the pandemic worsened in South Korea. For South Koreans entering the States, they will now need a vaccine pass. Currently, only negative test results are required. However, the measures have been strengthened as the U.S. will only allow fully vaccinated people with a negative PCR test to enter the country starting November 8th. Meanwhile, the WHO Emergency Committee insists that countries should not require a proof of vaccination as the only condition for international travel. They recommended making changes to testing or quarantine measures instead, as many countries do not have equal access to vaccines.
Now, Min-jung, we're also hearing that more vaccines produced in South Korea are set to be distributed this week. Tell us more on that.
Right, so Moderna vaccines developed by Samsung Biologics will be distributed in the country in the coming weeks. And some 2.4 million doses will be used in the country to vaccinate people in the fourth quarter. Up until now, Moderna vaccines administered in the country were manufactured overseas from countries like the U.S. and Europe. This is the second domestically produced COVID-19 vaccine given to Koreans after AstraZeneca's vaccine produced by SK Bioscience was distributed in February. South Korea is solidifying its position as a global vaccine hub as Samsung Biologics plans on delivering Moderna's vaccine across the globe as well.
Okay, now thank you, Min-jung, for your report. I will talk to you with more updates, hopefully, in our next newscast.
Thank you.